Reading Diary from a Sanitorium by Fred Khumalo, published in Staff Rider Volume 10, Number 1, published in the year 1992. Diary from a Sanitorium. The scene reenacted itself in his mind with blinding clarity. Under the cover of darkness, silhouettes of armed men surround his home. Some of them hurl petrol bombs and stones at the windows of the four-roomed bungalow. Amid screams and the sound of shattering glass, some of the gun-toting men break into the house, looting valuables while others are calling out his name, others venting their sexual frustrations on his two sisters, a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old. By now the house is aflame and his mother has been tied with a rope to a bed frame. Her cries for mercy mingle with the music of the flames as they slowly close in on her. Her body begins blackening and her flesh sizzles as she wriggles and twists in a slow macabre ballet of death. He yelled out. He yelled out his attempts at running away. He yelled out, but his attempts at running away were frustrated by the fact that he had been shackled to his bed. He was attacked by a headache that felt as though a knotted rope was being twisted slowly tighter and tighter around his forehead. He was sweating profusely. He felt something cold touch his forehead. "Relax, Peggy. You're safe here," a voice said. He was catapulted into reality. He was in a hospital or some other institution of that sort, he realized, feeling the bed linen with his hands. The whiteness of the walls soothed him. "Don't ever think about that accident again," the voice spoke again. He looked up and was greeted by the smiling face of a white doctor. "Don't worry yourself about the past. It won't do you any good," the doctor said, still smiling. Peggy nodded. But how could he forget about a past which had taken with it a crucial part of him, his home, his mother? Had it not been for that past, he wouldn't be lying in this bed. He wouldn't have finished his law degree at the University of Natal. He wouldn't be worrying about anything. Or he would have finished his law degree at the University of Natal. He wouldn't be worrying about anything. Damn it, it wouldn't have happened, he muttered to himself. Trying to banish the sad thoughts, he said, "Doctor, I wanted to go and relax in the sun." "Okay, that will do you good as long as you don't allow your mind to drift into the past." The doctor undid the shackles. Peggy slunk into his gown as he stepped into the morning. His face was caressed by the warm breath of summer. The morning was splendid and heartwarming, alive with the sounds of nature. The birds which flapped merrily above Fort Napier Institute, at which he was an inmate, sang praises to the warmth of summer. The chorus was supplemented by the chirpy refrain of the crickets. He placed his stool against the wall and sat facing the sun, absorbing its warmth. He was soon joined by another man, also in a gown. A cigarette dangled from his lips and smoke curled up from its lit end to his eyes. "Molo Baba," Peggy greeted. The man planted himself on a stool and continued puffing away at his cigarette, oblivious to everything. "Sawubona Baba," Peggy said even louder. "Man, I'm thinking. I don't want to be disturbed. Not by a madman in any case." The man growled like an enraged lion, the cigarette slipping away from his lips. Peggy remembered that he was among abnormal people, insane people. He was sane enough to know that, sane enough to back away when the man charged towards him. But he was also insane to be among But he was also insane to be among insane people. Why do people ever become insane? He wondered, clicking his tongue endlessly. The other man took his stool and left Peggy in peace. Again, Peggy savored the noisy silence of nature. At 9, the bell rang, summoning everybody to the dining hall. In the dining hall, Peggy joined the inmates who were queuing for porridge. In his hands, he had the weapons with which he was to launch his ferocious attack on food: a soup plate made of enamel and a spoon. He was hungry and could hear his intestines chanting slogans of anger at the approaching enemy. Hey, are you crazy? Give me your plate. The man who was dishing up said to Beggy, whose thoughts had wandered so far away that he did not realize when his turn had come. He had in fact forgotten what he was queuing for. Having voraciously gulped his porridge, he launched his cleanup operation on the buttered slices of bread, which had been placed in front of him on a plate. He was so absorbed in what he was doing that he didn't hear the noise made by the inmates with whom he was sharing the table. He washed down the chunks of bread with a mug full of hot coffee, doing all this religiously with the undivided concentration which he thought it deserved. Then words penetrated his separateness. Hey, mate, you eat like a pig. You've finished your meal already. Boiling with rage, he overturned the table, screaming at the men who were teasing him. Bloody madman! Don't ever mistake me for a madman. Soon the dining hall became a cauldron of madness, with inmates trying to register their blows on Bay, while others tried to act as peacekeepers, saying, "Forget about the man, he's just mad." In an instant, a battalion of doctors had scurried into the dining hall to maintain order. The doctors were like olive-bearing doves in a war-torn territory. They were charged with keeping order in the lives and minds of the insane fellows. The doctor who attended Beyi earlier looked inquiringly at him, shaking his head sadly as if sympathizing with some poor demented soul. Peggy said, "You see, Doctor, these crazy bastards think I'm like them. I don't know how I'm going to make them realize that I'm not what they think I am. No, I'm not nuts. No, I'm not nuts. No, I'm not nuts." Point taken, Peggy. But look what you've done now. You've spoiled other people's meals and appetites. Now there is the door. Use it. Belching noisily and thumping his chest with his open palm, he shuffled his feet and swaggered his way out of the dining room, a string of abusive words pelting him, erupting in quick succession from the mouths of men whose food he had spilled. For a moment he believed that the morning had been missing him while he was in the dining hall. Now that he was back, the morning cheered up again, embracing him in her tender warmth. As he sat on his stool, a tingling sensation crept up his spine, and it seemed as if a shaft of light was piercing its way through his mind. Smiling, he knew what it was. The creative fit had struck home again. He dug his hand into the pocket of his gown and fished out a notebook and a pencil. Muttering to himself, "I'm going to show them I'm not mad," he scribbled on the notebook. The scribbling was accompanied by the chant, "I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad." It seemed as if he was deriving his creative energies from the mantra, "I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad." Scribbling with zeal, "I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad." Turning the pages and blackening them with indecipherable scrawls, "I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad." Jerk, screech. The rhythm of the pen was broken by the tolling of the bell at 10:30, time for physical training. "Damn it," he whispered to himself as he quickened his pace towards the locker room. By the time he reached the door of the locker room, he was breathing heavily. Having abandoned his pajamas and gown, in an untidy bundle. He got into his shorts, t-shirts, and joggers. With the door of the locker room behind him, he quickened his pace towards the training ground, a well-tended soccer field. Some inmates were already warming up, flexing their muscles. The training instructor, a short-tempered doctor of mixed ancestry, was patiently waiting. "Hurry up, Peggy, we're waiting for you," the doctor shouted, waving. "What do you mean, you're waiting for me? I'm not late." "Okay, sir, don't waste our time. Join us now. We're running 4 laps around this field," the instructor said, and broke into a sprint, a train of joggers trailing behind him. Biggie also joined. The fervor with which he took the jog was so intense that he did not stop after 4 laps. He was running blindly. However, his intimate affair with the jog was broken by the roaring laughter from the crowd of inmates. Embarrassed, Peggy joined the team and went about their exercises, push-ups, frog marches, and all. After the training session, they resigned themselves to the dining room for a refreshing cup of tea. Then they headed to the communal bathroom. Washed up, they put on clean clothes, then went to the hall where they normally attended their literacy classes. They hurriedly reached their desks and focused their minds on the teacher in front of them. The blackboard behind her was dirty with chalked diagrams accompanied by scrolls which literate people call words. Words defacing a blackboard. Beggy, as usual, was the last to arrive. He came up straight to the teacher and bowed slightly, mumbling an apology, then went to his desk. In one of his hands he had his notebook, a dog-eared pad, and a pencil. "Now, class, as part of our lesson today, we're going to give names to these objects," the teacher said in her sing-song voice, pointing at the board. "As you can see on the board, I've drawn objects accompanied by words. Each object is accompanied by a wrong name. What I want you to do is match an object with its correct name. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am," a chorus of contented voices said. But Begi was not part of the class. He was turning the pages of his notebook, scribbling, smiling with satisfaction, and pausing, frowning, smiling as he resumed his scribbling. "Now, class," the teacher said, turning from the blackboard to face her pupils. But she lost track of what she wanted to say when she saw Begi, his head buried in his desk, laboriously scribbling away in his notebook. "Begi," she said, taking 2 steps towards the class. "Begi, are you still with us?" Heads turned towards Begi, who mumbled something without lifting his face from his pad. "Begi, what are you doing? Are you deaf? I told you I'm writing a book." The teacher smiled. The class broke into raucous laughter. "Hey, hey, writing a book? Crazy man, writing a book." There was even more laughter when Peggy slammed his fist on the table, saying, "Look at the monkeys. Jealous monkeys can't appreciate good things. Look at them. Laughing, jealous monkeys." The teacher restored order. "Okay, class, back to our lesson." The pupils refocused their minds and eyes on the task before them. "You're also jealous," Becky said, referring to the teacher. "Yes, you're jealous. I'm writing a book and you don't even ask me what it's about. Think I'm crazy." Becky left his desk, his notebook and pencil clasped in his hand. "You're jealous and You're jealous and selfish. I'm going to show you all that I'm not a crazy bum," he said, storming out of the room, leaving the puzzled teacher trying to quieten her laughing pupils. The sun was baking the earth. Biggie retired to a jacaranda tree under which he sat and opened his vein on the notebook, scribbling like a man possessed. The 2 o'clock bell chimed. summoning the inmates to the flower gardens. There wasn't much to be done there. No weeds to be plucked out, no paper and other litter to be removed. The gardens were neat and the scrubs pruned, the edges of the lawn neatly manicured, but it had become a routine to go there and hover around idly. Just a routine, one of many routines. At 2:15 the inmates gathered around the dining hall for lunch. After after a filling meal of rice and chicken curry, they walked about the premises, happy to be free from routine, but their freedom was wrenched from them by the chiming of the bell at 3. They strolled to another hall for a video screening. It was one of those detective stories. Was it Magnum or The Untouchables? Anyway, Peggy hated those kind of movies. However, he had no alternative but to go to the hall and stare at the screen. It was the regulation. It was dusk when the inmates filed out of the hall, their voices mingling into a meaningless babble as they tried to mimic the actors they had just seen on the screen. Peggy, who had been sleeping through the entire showing, hurried to the toilet. His eyes were still heavy with sleep as he unzipped his fly and fingered his way into his underpants. He looked at himself in the mirror. His chocolate complexioned face boasted a goatee and a thick mustache, which somehow belied his youthful age. His face was fleshy and his lips thick. His ears were barely visible under his thick afro-styled bush of hair. He thought his eyes were those of an intelligent man. Didn't Kwame Nkrumah have eyes like these? He mused, smiling to himself. And so the days rolled on. He succumbed to the fits of creativity which attacked him frequently, and scribbled his thoughts in his notebook, documenting a slice of his life in this abnormal institute. Words, images, rhythms, phrases became his bosom friends. They became the pillows on which he nestled. No sooner had Peggy been released from the sanatorium, having spent a year there, than shockwaves rippled the publishing world after the publication of The Diary of a Not So Madman, his graphic description of life at the Fort Napier Mental Institute. The book looked at his life at the sanatorium against the background of the trauma that had gripped him after his home in Mpumalanga Township had been pounced on by right-wing extremists who unleashed terror on their political opponents. Having searched each and every nook for Begi, the leader of Mpumalanga Township Youth Congress, they had looted the furniture, raped his sisters, and set the house aflame, his mother perishing in the inferno. For 3 months, the book was on the bestseller list at Unique Books, the nationally renowned distributing network. After 6 months, it went for a second printing, and then for third and fourth, fifth, sixth. But the author had by then been recalled to the sanatorium. His condition had deteriorated. He had found the outside world cold, harsh, and welcoming, seeming to hurl back at him that harrowing scene, the screams and the sound of shattering glass, man interfering with his sisters, his mother's desperate cry drowning in flames, her body blackening and her flesh sizzling. In literary circles, Beggie's work was discussed with zest, while the not so madman sank into the oblivion of his secluded place, sheltered from the madness of the world that acclaimed him.